Hello, I'm Dr. Jonathan Smirl, and I'm an assistant professor here at the University of Calgary and a member of the Libin Institute. And today I'd like to talk to you about exercising the brain. So at the university, I am the principal investigator in charge of running the cerebrovascular concussion lab, which is a fancy way of saying I like to look at how the brain gets its blood flow, what it does with that, because that gives us all the nutrients for allowing the brain to function, and what happens to this following concussion. But that's not all we do there. We actually do a lot of also exercise physiology work and look at other interventions. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this today. So first up, why am I talking about the brain when we're looking at exercise? Typically we think of exercise as working out our muscles, our legs, and trying to do activities in that range. But actually the brain is really important. So although it is just a tiny part of our body, takes up just about 2%, at rest, it gets almost 20% of all the oxygen that we consume. So it really needs to get an awful lot of nutrients delivered to allow it to function, because again, the brain is what controls and allows us to be who we are. And the reason for the brain needing so much blood going to it and getting all those nutrients is, unlike other parts of the body, it really doesn't have an ability to store nutrients. And if we have reduced levels of, say, our blood sugars, like glucose, we can get dizzy, confused, and sometimes even have other outcomes happen. And if we have lower levels of oxygen in it, we can have even worse changes that go on. So it's really important for us to understand how this part of our body works and how we can kind of keep it at optimal functioning. Because if we don't, we can have certain things happen to us, like fainting episodes, or even worse, such as like stroke or other disease parameters that come up. So that's why I think the brain is super important to study and understand. And so what happens then with physical activity in the brain? Why would I want to mention this to everyone? Well, as we go through different levels of activity, so if we're doing nice and light, like walking around the neighborhood, going up to a little bit higher level where we're maybe going out for a little bit of a jog or doing a full sprint, the brain needs more and more oxygen to go through. So it needs more delivery of nutrients to make it function really well. And it's really important because, again, the more we deliver to it, the better we can actually make it happen. But unlike other parts of the body, the brain responds a little bit differently. So how we typically would think, the more we work out, the harder it gets. So going from light activity to heavier intensities to really hard exercise, we should get our brain blood flow to go up the exact same. So that's what we see when we look at how much nutrients it needs. But what's really interesting about the brain is that it's inside of a rigid frame, so our skull, and it can't just keep going up and up and up with blood flow. So instead what happens is when we start to breathe really heavy, it'll actually change how our blood flow in our brain responds so that we can then make sure we don't get too much going on inside our head and having negative outcomes from that. Instead, we get the benefits of exercise without having to feel like our head is trying to push itself apart. Really, really, really cool part of how our brain works. And when we do exercise, I think people are really aware that it's really great for our heart, it's great for our muscles, it's great for our body. But I'm not sure people know how much it also helps with our brain function. So we can get lots of really good things that happen, like we can get neurotropic factors, which is a fancy way of saying things that help our brain grow and expand and enhance its functionality. We can get better activation. We can get better responses in the blood vessels in our brain to help us respond to what's going on and make our brain feel younger and healthier. So it's really awesome. And we also know that there's a lot of other factors that can happen with exercise across the different areas of our body too. But if we combine all of this, we get a huge improvement in brain function. So not only can we get better ability to send blood up to our brain, we can promote improvements of vessel growth across our brain so we can get that enhanced ability to function. We can increase our neuroplasticity, or that ability for the different nerves in our brain to connect to one another and make us function better. We can improve our learning, our memory, our decision-making processes, all from just doing exercise. And combine that, we also get the other benefits that we're well aware of improving our blood pressure across our body, improving the ability to regulate inflammation across our different areas of our body and joints. We get better uptake of our glucose and our blood sugars. So exercise, we know, is great for the body, but it also is hugely beneficial for the brain. And when we look at aging, so as we kind of get older and we move through everything and get the gray hairs like I'm getting right now, we typically find that, we don't do as well as we could, so we can have a little bit less ability for our muscles to function, our strength to function. But the awesome thing is we truly have a fabulous medicine that we can give to every single person out there, and that's exercise. So ability to do exercise will help actually offset an awful lot of these changes that happen across our body. Like, we can improve our muscle strength and function. We can get those muscles to grow again. We can get things to happen and function much better. And the brain is no different. So just want to end on this little note here, is that this is what typically happens as we get older. The blood flow in our brain goes down a little bit as we get going on. But an important thing here is all the dark dots are people who sat on their couches and didn't do a whole lot, where the light dots are people who were active the whole time. And I don't know if you can notice this, but those white dots tend to be higher up than the black dots. It doesn't matter where we look on this. Anywhere we go, the areas of the white dots are typically almost 10 years younger in a relative sense to the areas of the black dots. So it's never too young, it's never too old to start to improve that brain function by getting out there and exercising. So I hope this was an interesting, quick little talk. And just saying that the more active you do, the better you're going to be. And we're going to get all these benefits from it if we do that. So I'd just like to say thank you for listening. And I'd like to acknowledge my lab or the university here. I'd like to thank all the research groups that have helped us. So definitely Livin, Alberta Children's Hospital, the Hotchkiss Brain Institute, NSERC, the NFL Scientific Advisory Board, as well as the Sport Injury Prevention Research Center here at University of Calgary. If anyone has any questions or comments and like to reach out to me, here's my email. It's jonathan.smirl@universityofcalgary.ca. Otherwise, have a great day, and I hope this was an interesting talk.